Hello and welcome. I am Paisley. If you don't know me yet, this practice is going to be for the legs, specifically to help the feet and the knees. You're going to want to block later in the practice. This is just to elevate the hips when we sit. Something like a block will work. Just set that to the side and we'll use it later on. Let's begin standing. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start to warm up the feet. So initially, we're going to lift just the heel of one foot, doesn't matter which one, and then we're going to circle around on the ball of the foot. So it's as if you're drawing a circle with your ankle over the ball of your foot, and you're trying to weight the ball of your foot on all sides, like you're drawing a circle even with the ball of the foot on the ground. So now let's go the other way. So we're working on articulation of the foot, the ankle joint, and that's going to travel up the legs. So one of the reasons that we're working in this practice today from the feet up is because this is the foundation of what we stand on. And when the feet are tight or tired, it affects the whole Tadasana, the whole standing. Okay, so now you've gone both ways, circling. You're going to keep the ball of your foot down, kind of track your foot, point it forward, try not to let it turn out right now. Try to spread through your toes, and then you're going to drag back with your heel, so you're not actually moving your foot, but you're going to set your heel down, and you're going to pretend like you're making your footprint longer as you do that. And then once you do that, you can kind of lift the toes on that foot, try to spread all the toes, and then keep them spread, and set the toes back down. And then just pause and feel the difference between your two legs and your 2 feet. And then of course we're going to do this on the other side. So as you lift the heel, you're keeping the whole ball of your foot on the ground, but you're basically weighting around, W-E-I-G-H, not W-A-I-T, that whole like if you pictured the ball of your foot like a disc, you're trying to articulate your foot in such a way where you put pressure on each side as you circle around. So it might help you to think of moving your ankle in a circle, a horizontal circle above your foot, the part that's on the floor. This is my left leg, and it's definitely more uncoordinated. So that may be you as well. Just try to slow down any parts of the circle that feel like they're kind of like wobbly or weird. And maybe just do that 1 or 2 more times. Try to switch directions if you haven't already. I've already done that. Anyway, this is something we don't do very often, and we're usually not very skilled in it. Okay, so now we're going to end with heel up. Foot is pointing straight ahead. We're tracking the heel back, straight back from the toes. And then you're going to pull. Imagine that you could drag your heel farther away from your toes as you put your foot back down. Once you have your heel stamped down on the ground, you're going to shift to lift just the toes. So ball the foot down, heel down, toes up. You're going to feel like an energy to pull up there, but I want you to spread your toes and then put your toes back down. And then this is the foundation of Tadasana. So we'll just stand for a moment and feel how that feels, this mountain pose. We call it Tadasana in yoga. And just see if anything feels different or good or bad or whatever. And then when you exhale, you're gonna fold forward over your legs. Now I like hip width apart, especially early in my practice. I'm just gonna turn sideways so you can see me a little bit easier. You can always take your feet wider, especially if you're feeling pretty tight or if your low back is kind of high, rounding up toward the ceiling. So put your hands on something. It could be your block, it could be the floor. And then you're gonna just gently bend your knees. So like a kind of a micro bend, not a big squat. Try to get your toes to point straight ahead, and then your knees to point straight ahead. Now, some people are knock-kneed, which means their knees are going to be in comparison to where their feet are. They're going to go toward the middle, and that's okay. But try to look at your kneecaps and point your kneecaps forward. And then once you've seen that your kneecaps are forward, you're going to begin to straighten your legs. And as you go straighter and straighter with your legs, you're kind of just paying attention to, like, if you could draw like 4 dots on your kneecap, like the 2 outer edges, the 2 inner edges, that square is pointing forward on both knees. So I know this is like a lot of minutia, and it's maybe uninteresting to you, I don't know, but it will hopefully help your knees and your feet. Okay, now we're gonna keep the legs as is. We're just gonna push into whatever the hands are on. We're gonna inhale and lengthen the spine up, away from the floor. And just pause in that upright orientation, kind of pushing the quads, the top of the thighs back, not so much jamming the knees back, just keeping the knees straight. And then we're gonna exhale again and fold forward. Let's do that 2 more times. So stay really steady in your legs. Inhale, lengthen the spine, lift the head, lift the gaze. Just pause, holding upright on the exhale, and try to keep the legs exactly the same. Fold forward. So just resist the urge to kind of fidget around with your legs. Just try to keep those knees pointing straight ahead, not turning in or turning out too much. And then fold forward again. Okay, last one, lengthen. So your kneecaps pointing whatever is forward for your body, for the alignment of your legs. And exhale. Now, when we breathe in again, what we're gonna do is support hands on the ground, but lift the heels and draw the hips down. So go to wherever your knees can. You're in a little squat now, but your head is up and your hands are helping you. So we're stretching through the balls of the feet and the toes, and we're gonna go back and forth in and out of this shape. So you're gonna go heels down, butt up, forward fold, arriving at that same position you were in a moment ago, and then returning. So head up, butt down, bend your knees, lift your heels, try to stretch through the soles of your feet. Again, straight legs, so try to point your knees forward. Don't let them roll in or out too much. Backs of the knees have parallel squares to the fronts of the knees. So open the back of the knees evenly, inside, outer side. Last time, we're gonna squat, and when you bend your knees here, you're trying to track your knees forward as well. So again, if you have kind of more knock knees or more bow-legged, your knees are gonna go maybe out or in, depending on your leg shape. But you're gonna try to find where that line is for you. And then from here, when you lift your head, you're gonna walk your hands forward and you're gonna step your feet back into downward facing dog. And for this dog pose, you're gonna bend your knees again, and you're gonna orient to the feet now. So look at the feet, try to point the heels back. They're probably gonna be mostly disappearing behind your ankles. You might see them a little bit on the inner edges. And then you're gonna travel up with your awareness and you're gonna look at your knees. And you're gonna do the same work you just did, kind of knees pointing forward, so they're not knock-kneed too much, unless that's just the orientation of your legs. And they're just starting to stay pointing forward. And then this time, to straighten your legs, you're gonna begin to drop your heels. But as you do that, you're gonna imagine that you have like a little golf ball underneath the ball of each foot, or the arch rather of each foot. So as your heels drop back and down to straighten your legs, you're keeping your arches taut or lifted rather than collapsing them. So your heels may not make it to the floor, and that's not really the goal. We're trying to work, tone, and stretch through the feet and the lower legs. So the sole of the foot is kind of domed up in the middle. So as the heel drops down, you're like imagining you're going over a dome there. Just check that the knees are still pointing the way you think that they're supposed to, forward as best they can. And then you're just gonna hold that and experience whatever the sensation of stretching is. As often if you attend in this detailed way, it will feel different. Good job. Okay, roll over the toes, put your knees down, and then point your feet so that your toenails are on the mat. Then grab your block, put that between your feet, and sit down between your heels. Okay, so I realize that not everybody's knees are easy in bending this way. So if this is hard for your knees, just put more things under your butt. What we're trying to do here now is to stretch the top of the foot, the top of the ankle. So you're going to use your fingers and you're going to feel right at the ankle area. And you're just going to notice if there's a gap between the front of your shin at your ankle area and the floor. Now for me, one foot and ankle are like flush and the other one are up. And that tends to be my tighter leg, the one that's higher, and the leg that has a little more difficulty. So I'm not suggesting that you just flatten and smash your leg down. It's just some self-awareness. What's going on with your legs? Now what we are going to work with the hands is we're going to go to the sole of the foot because it's facing up and we can reach it. And we're just going to kind of press. I like to use the heel of my hand kind of right around the pinky edge of the ball of the foot. It's easier to do one foot at a time for me, but you could do them both at the same time. So as you press down on the sole of the foot, kind of the ball of the foot near the pinky toe, you should feel a sensation of stretching, perhaps on the top of your foot. And if nothing else, you can just think of it like you're giving the bottom of your foot a little massage. So just make sure you do the other side. And if you're kind of done with that part of your foot, you could always just use your knuckles and just do a little bit of kneading to massage your foot. And I know this is kind of slow, like we're just sitting here, but really letting the connective tissue have time, right? We're not just rushing through this stretch. Okay, let's come up off the block. Again, we're going to put that to the side, and we're going to take the hands to the mat and come back up into dog pose. And just reset in the way that you did before. Feet are parallel, knees slightly bent. Lift the heels, point the heels back and the knees forward, and begin to drop your heels, keeping the arch of the foot a little bit lifted, imagining that you're going over a ball, maybe a golf ball, so that you are not collapsing the arches of your feet to get your legs straight. And then be still in the pose. Kind of like your body is reconfiguring, right? Getting a chance to reboot here. So just hold, feeling the stretch wherever it is. Even if the arms are tired, try to just stay with it. Couple full breaths. And then you're going to drop your knees again. This time you're going to step forward with your right foot between your hands. Take your back knee, drag it forward so you're closer to the top of your mat. And as you do that, come back onto your toenails like you were a moment ago. Grab your block again, and then sit down just like you did before, but now it's just one leg. So this is Virasana, or hero's pose. Now just the left leg is in it, and the right foot is flat on the mat. So both sit bones are on your prop, pillow, block, whatever you have. And again, you're gonna let the top of your leg stretch on the left side. And then once you're situated or settled, you're gonna send your right foot straight out to a straight leg. And then you're gonna look, you're doing the same attending to your leg that you did before. So you're thinking of your kneecap like a plate, and you're trying to point that kneecap straight upright. Now, if you're a little bit knock-kneed, it's probably gonna turn in some, but you're gonna do your best to keep the knee kind of flush, parallel to the ground. So doing that, start to slide your heel out until your leg is straight as you can get it without losing that alignment. And then you're gonna push through the ball of the foot. So now when I really attend to that on my leg and my knee is really upright, my foot's turned out a little bit. No biggie. Okay, so you're welcome to stay here and just try to stay upright and get your kind of back long. Or if this is fairly easy for you, you could lean out over your leg using your hands on the ground for support. So we're sort of simultaneously like squeezing the left knee, like it's getting like a little bit of a pressure to help kind of, the image that's used is like wringing out. It really isn't that. I mean, we're not like a sponge, but kind of pushes the fluid around there like a massage would do. And then the right leg obviously is getting a stretch. Come on back up, right? And I'm going to give you a couple options here. So we're going to lean back. That's why I had you scoot forward on your mat. You're going to bend the right knee again. And then there's a couple choices here. So we're going to stretch the front of the left leg. So one is to just walk your hands behind you. If you do that, you might want to kind of tuck your tail under. The other option, this would obviously be dependent on your knee and foot flexibility, would be to take the block away and sit on the floor to the inside of your left heel. And you could proceed with leaning back if that was the case, and then perhaps even putting the block under your upper back, which is the choice I'm gonna make today. And wherever you are, you're gonna look down your left leg, your knee, and you're gonna try to keep it from winging off to the left. You're gonna try to point it kind of straight forward from your hip joint. So it doesn't have to be smashed to the midline, but we're trying to point forward so that the kneecap is pointing away from the hip and the top of the foot and ankle are stretching. You can use your right leg to kind of help steer your hips and legs into that alignment. And if you have your back supported like I do and you're not all the way to the floor, you could always cradle your head for a little neck support. So try to stay with it. If it's really bothersome on your knees and your knees just don't do this shape, you can always lie on your right side and kick your foot back and hold your foot with your hand so you're still getting that quad stretch. You're just not compressing your knee so much. So we're not trying to create pain in the knee. If you're having pain in your knee, then you're too far. You need to come up, get out of it a little bit. All right, lift back up from wherever you were. You're gonna lift your hips and just put your block off to the right side of your mat again. Lift up your buns. You're gonna step back with your left leg like dog pose, but we're not going to dog, we're gonna do triangle. You're gonna turn that heel on a bit of a diagonal. You're gonna wiggle the right foot forward. I'm gonna grab my block again, that's why I wanted it off the right side, and put it next to my outer right shin area. Push down with that hand, it can be on the floor too, and place your left hand on your hip. So right leg is going to do the same work it's been doing. Toes are pointing forward toward the short end of the mat. Knee is trying not to roll in or out too much. It's just going to track 4 points of the knee pointing same direction as the toes to get the legs straight. So I'm looking with my face to ensure that. And then once I've seen that, I'm going to begin to roll my head so that I'm looking out. So the gaze is kind of out horizontal. And we're just going to stop at that point today. We're going to not really force the hips to turn much more than this. So just really focus on straightening the right leg, the front leg, and grounding down into the back heel. I like using my left hand on my sacrum near my tailbone to push my tail away from my head, or pull it really to lengthen my back. That feels really good to me. You might want to try it. And then just be patient. And stay. Straighten that right leg. Press down through the ball of the right foot. Open the chest. And lean your head back a little bit. Give it a nice breath. We're going to come out of this into a kneeling lunge. So your left hand is going to sweep down next to your hip toward the floor. You're going to pivot your left heel up, and you're going to drop that left knee down. Back your hips up a hair. Tuck your tail under. Lift up the arms. Keep that little tuck of tail. Flatten the left toenails so they're on the mat. And then lean forward. And start to lift your gaze. And then hands to ground. Step on back to dog pose. Set the block to the side for now. Bend your knees. Lift your heels. Align your feet and knees well. Start to drop the heels without collapsing the arches. Just giving attention back and forth between the feet and the knees. Just watching what they're doing. Trying to keep the weight even across the balls of your feet. Don't let it roll out toward the pinky toes. Even though we're working in like this minutia, this tiny little detail, just be compassionate with yourself. It's hard work. It takes a lot of focus. Give it a breath. Maybe one more. Okay, drop your knees again. Step forward with your left foot. Drag your right knee forward a little more toward the front of your mat. Flatten out the top of the right foot on the ground. Put the block next to your heel and sit down, both sit bones on it. Pull that left leg in a little. You can just hold on to the knee if you want. That'll help you sit up a little bit easier. And this is where you can kind of ground yourself, like it's a transition moment. And it also will help you figure out how your hips tend to orient. So I mentioned that this leg is tighter for me, so I feel my hips trying to compensate for that, wanting to rotate. Slide your left heel forward before your leg is all the way straight. Rotate your thigh so that your kneecap is pointing upright. So your thigh is kind of pointing upright. Do your best to keep that and begin to push your heel forward to straight. Just stopping if you can't manage it or it's too intense. And then again, those options to stay here and just be upright and kind of work on keeping your low back from rounding back. Or if you're a little bit more limber or this is easier for you to sit up, you could start to lean forward. And really what we're trying to do when I say that is like we want the low back to be able to lean forward when we go out over the leg. So if you lean forward and your low back rounds behind you, then it's better to just try to sit up straight. It's just safer for your lumbar spine, your low back area to do it that way. And we'll just be patient here like we were on the other side and like we've been this whole practice. So we're kind of breaking patterns today, right? These are some structural holding patterns a lot of times we're not aware of, that we have some imbalances or we know we have imbalances, but we don't really know why or where they are. So just let your body be in this shape, right? Where this kind of burning intensity of stretch is happening. That's what you need. That sort of connective tissue tugging or pulling is going to help reconfigure things a little bit. That fascia layers letting go, hopefully, a little bit. Okay, I feel like I could stay on that side for about an hour, but I think that's enough time. You can always pause it and stay longer if you need to. So now we're gonna work on the leaning back portion of this. So you're gonna help by bending the left leg and either walking back, that might be enough, maybe walking back and kind of lifting and then tucking the tail, or maybe you take the block away and park your behind on the ground inside edge of your right foot. And if you're doing that one, you can also lean back. I like the block under my upper back when I do that. And at some point, you're gonna look down the right leg and you're gonna try to keep the kneecap pointing forward away from your hips, not off to the right. And you're gonna try to square your pelvis. So like I said, this is my tight side. My hips are turning way over to the left. So I have to use my left leg to help steer my hips to be more level, not to rotate over to the left. I'm even going to use my hand under my outer left hip to help with that. So do what you can, you know, within reason. We're not trying to like rip and tear things into some other shape that's like not attainable. We're just going in the direction of something and trying to meet the body where it is, yeah? Like this is why props exist, because we're trying to go in the direction of something and we can't always get there. So when you find a manageable position, see if you can stay in it. That longer hold is what's going to start to work on the fascia. The fascia often is what holds the patternings of imbalance. Well, the good news is it's malleable. It's not necessarily fast to change. It's like on the year scale. Muscles can change like instantly and have effect last for like 2 weeks. Fascia is much slower, but the change stays longer once you make it. Okay, so let's give this side just a little bit longer. And again, I feel like I could stay on this side for a really long time. Now, if that's you and you need longer anywhere, you just pause the video or come back to this side later. Okay. Let's push on up. We're heading into triangle pose. So you're going to move your block to the left side, knowing that that's coming. Lift your buns up. Step back with your right foot. You're going to take that heel, pivot it in so the foot's on a bit of a diagonal, and kind of wiggle that left foot forward so you're in a longer stance. Grab your block, put it next to your ankle, plant your hand on it, right hand on your hip. So right now you're looking down, even your hips are turning down, and you're seeing if you can point your knee and your toes kind of the same direction within reason for your body and your legs. Once you see that, you're going to straighten your knee. Keep the leg straight, and then start to turn your head so you're looking out a little bit more horizontal or away from the floor. Again, I really like using my hand on my pelvis to encourage some length in my low back. Keep that left leg straight. If you're not sure what it's doing, just look at it again. Some weight on the inner edge of the right foot, that's the back foot. And we're not really trying to turn the hips open so much. We're letting the hips just be in their more natural orientation. but we are turning a little bit in the ribs and a little bit in the head. We're just being patient. Nice long hold. Okay, to come out, we're going to kneeling lunge. Lift your right heel and bend your front knee. Drop the right heel down. Back the hips up a little bit. Scoop the tail down and squeeze your butt muscles so that you're stretching your hip flexors on the right side more. Point the right foot so the toenails are down, and then take your arms overhead. We're going to try to keep that squeeze of the hips pointing forward, and we're going to bend the front leg. So worry less about how deep or far forward you're going in the pose, and more about kind of really squaring up the hips to the front and keeping that back foot glued down to the floor. That kind of attention to detail is how we're going to resolve some tightnesses and imbalances. Okay, hands to the earth. Block out of the way if it's in the way. Last time, dog pose. You know what to do. Just go on in there. See how you're feeling. If you're struggling with keeping both feet and knees in the alignment you want, just pick one. You can pick the other one next time. Keep your feet where they are. Walk your hands back. Don't move your feet, just walk on back. This is really informative. So now see with your eyes if your feet are where you thought they were. Sometimes one foot is ahead of the other or more turned out or something. Okay. And then like we did earlier, you're just gonna bend your knees, lift your heels, squat. My knees always pop. They've been doing that since I was a child. There's nothing wrong with me. And then you're going to just find your way to sitting. We're just going to do one little thing here, sitting. And you're going to sit cross-legged if you can. If you can't, you can do this in a different way. I'll show it to you first. You're just going to take one foot. You can always take like a leg out to the side too, if that's easier for you. And you're going to try to position your foot so you can kind of see the sole of your foot. So for some people, this might mean sitting in a chair or on a couch. Totally cool. Okay, so I'm going to lift my foot so you can see this, but you don't need to lift your foot. You're going to try to grab, I'll do it a couple ways, so that you're holding either side of your foot, like the bones of either side of your foot. So for me, that looks like this. And then you're going to try to move those edges of your feet in opposite directions. So I don't know what the best way to show you this is, but basically you're pulling back on one side and pushing forward on the other side. And you can do that with your foot facing any way you want. I just think the sole of the foot facing you is good. And you can even try to pull the bones of your foot apart, like you're trying to pull the big toe and the pinky toe side away from one another. And don't be afraid to pull firmly. Make some space there. And then we're going to do a little tiny bit of massage. So you can use your knuckle, your thumb, or your elbow. And you're going to see if you can just kind of press, find areas that are, sensitive but not painful. Just kind of, I like when I push to kind of rotate, like stick my knuckle on and then turn it. And I'm not trying to do it to my hardest possible degree. That would be too much. But just to pay attention to what's happening in the feet. So if you're sitting on the floor, you're just gonna switch which leg is straight and which one is bent, or which leg is on the top. If you're on the couch, same. Grab big toe side of the foot and pinky toe side of the foot with your two hands. Move them back and forth in opposite directions as best you can. And then you're gonna pull apart. It's almost like you're fanning your toes by pulling apart with your hands so that you're making space across the ball of the foot. Let's see if you can open that area at all. Let's get any kind of movement in there. It's like we're so, we only, maybe you've heard this quote before, but like, what is the best way to forget your problems? To wear tight shoes, right? Like we don't think about our feet until they freaking hurt. This is kind of preemptive. So start to do a little bit of that massage. You can use your knuckle. I sometimes prefer using my elbow because it hits a larger surface area. Whatever you can do, your thumbs. And so when the feet are tight, it's like we're standing on little tiny pins and everything is less stable. When the feet are more relaxed and also stronger, creates a better stable base. All right, now when you've finished with that, you can always crack your toes too. You're gonna make your way to recline on your back. When you do so, you're gonna want room to reach your arms overhead without running into anything. So pause without your arms overhead and just let your back kind of drop onto the mat as best you can. You can even kind of slightly tuck your tail so your low back is making more contact with the earth. Try to get both left and right sides of your back to melt down onto the floor to kind of release. And then you're going to take your arms up and you're going to take them overhead. Palms are going to face the ceiling. And you're going to try not to let your waistline lift or your rib cage lift off the floor. So using your belly muscles a little bit to kind of brace your center so that you're keeping your back broad, the back of your waist especially. And then you're going to continue to scoop the tail to pull your belly in and to kind of flatten your back. And then you're going to peel your buns up and peel your low back up one bone at a time until your back is off the floor and your weight's kind of on your shoulders. Instead of going super high like bridge pose, keep your glutes squeezing tight, tuck your tail a lot, and really get long. So you're lengthening your back rather than lifting and going into a back bend. So knees parallel, they're not splaying to the sides. Pull with your feet, move your hips away from your head. You should feel the back of your legs a lot. And then pull your hips away from your head as you roll back down. Arms are still overhead, one bone at a time, really kind of flattening each section one at a time as it hits the mat. And then when the tail lands, we're going to go the other way. So you're going to arch your back off the mat, keep the hands where they are, the head where they are, where it is, I mean, and just tip. So your belly button rises, your belly opens, your back muscles are working to press your butt down and to lift your low back away from the floor. Take a nice full breath and try to expand your ribs. And then when you exhale, just relax. Drag your elbows down by your sides and either go traditional Shavasana, arms palms up, or just place your hands somewhere on your pelvis or your belly. Slide your legs out to straight, opening the feet apart, maybe shoulder width. and just rest for a couple minutes. This is really important when you're doing this kind of reconfiguring work, that you let it set. Because if you just get up and go back to what you were doing before, you might just go right back into those old patterns of holding and movement. So let it set. It's like you're waiting for a pie to cool so that it isn't gooey or runny when you cut into it. You can attend to restful qualities. If there's a sense of peacefulness, or perhaps mental quiet or ease, just acknowledge that. Acknowledge that restful quality, whether it's physical, mental, or in any other way. You might feel like you're lying down crooked because you've actually straightened out, or vice versa. Just let it be. Just let yourself be. You have a beautiful body. It's done a lot, it's been through a lot. We ask a lot of our bodies. So just remember that as you begin to reawaken now. We're just trying to work with where we are in a compassionate way. Kind of helping to restructure, but without force or cruelty to ourselves. So just start to transition in the direction of sitting. And I would suggest that you sit for a moment before you pop up for the same reasons I mentioned already. You might even feel like a little bit dizzy or disoriented. Some of that is a blood pressure change because you went from lying to sitting. But some of it might be because we realigned some things. So I hope this has been helpful for you, interesting for you. I know it was different and slow. And if you liked it, just drop me a note. You know, I do this out of the love of doing it, so I always like hearing if it's been a positive impact or what you might have learned. So I appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time.